Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Star vs. the Force of Evil, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
Alex Bonilla.
Wah!
And that was a Wah Alligator and Sam Quattro.
Hi.
Thank you for not doing the Wah. That also wasn't even that good of a... Try the second Wah.
Wah!
Okay. Well, today,
I don't like that.
Like the earlier gators were like wah, but like these were kind of like lower tone. They were like wah.
We'll do the acoustic analysis of the different wahs.
Please stop.
That'll be our next article.
The best. That was the highlight of the whole thing.
Don't
right?
spoil your take. Don't spoil your take. Okay.
I was like the best
Claw
part.
back, if you will.
We're talking. This is our second podcast on the big Star vs. the Force of Evil series finale, Cleaved. Check out our first reactions podcast we did yesterday at overlyanimated.com. Check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated or iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes. We had some takes from some different people on the first podcast, and now we have 3 fresh new takes on the finale. We do highly anticipated reactions from our panel here today, so we will see if they enjoyed this finale, this, I would say, controversial finale within the Star fandom. But we were very positive on it yesterday. Go listen to that podcast. But let's hear what you guys had to say about, obviously, spoilers for Cleaved. Michelle.
No, don't make me go first.
Michelle,
please.
we speculated what your reaction to the finale would be on the first podcast. This is a very highly anticipated moment. Yeah, obviously you didn't, but
So you want to say the best for last then?
Okay, if you want to. Alex, what did you think?
Okay.
What did you think of
Take it away,
Cleaved?
Alex.
I will be the one to take the first step into the wet pool of dark magic or whatever.
Stop.
Okay. So my initial reactions when I watched the episode, I got really emotional at certain moments with Star and Marco, and there were story moments in the episode that made me groan. And so by the end of the episode, when we get to the whole we've combined the worlds, there's the portal of love got them together, it's like it made me feel almost empty in a way. But at the same time, I was like, but there are parts of this I really like. And so I was just really confused. Was my initial reaction at watching it the first time around. And then I gave it a rewatch. And I think where I'm pinpointing is kind of this is I've given my overall takes on Star versus the Forces of Evil before, that Star and Marco are the foundation of this show. Their relationship is kind of what makes the whole thing go. It makes it tick. So when they're together, when they care about each other, when they get to do cool stuff together, that's all really great. When the show tries to do more story stuff outside of that, focusing on Muni stuff, or in the case of this finale, we're doing Mina stuff, we're doing destroying magic stuff. It sometimes feels like it loses its way and kind of leaves you in a very ambiguous state of well, what did that end up meaning and things. And so I think that this finale is kind of an encapsulation of just the entire show. If you really care about Starco and you love their relationship, then this finale was great for you. If you are tepid on Star and Marco, then the story around this was not enough to get you through. So I think that at the end of the day, Star is amazing. Star and Marco together are great. Star has some really nice moments in this finale, but there's just so much other stuff going on that kind of feels like it's just weighing down on the finale to me. So there are definitely parts that I really loved. But it doesn't feel to me. I mean, it feels like a finale fitting of the show in that it's very uneven. But the show was kind of uneven, and that allowed you to have really high highs, and then you also had lows. So it's the show was always up and down, and this finale was up and down. And so I think at the end of the day, it made me feel okay. But I guess because of the fact that it's a series finale. So maybe my expectations are too high, and I wanted to go out of this being yeah, that was great, that was a good way to end. But it felt more oh, okay. So there you go. It was a very conflicted relationship I had with this finale.
Okay, I think this is somewhat indicative of some reactions I've seen online, so I'm glad we're getting into that. You said if you didn't like more tepid on Starko, you might not like it. I think we'll test that theory with Michelle's takes to come here. That's what we've been building towards, the highly anticipated takes. And then another thing you said is the highly indicative of like the show. Like representative of what the show is. That really reminded me of our reaction to the Adventure Time finale, which we said was like very representative of Adventure Time as a show. And that's one thing I want to talk about later in this podcast is compare it to some other series finales we've had recently. So I think we'll get more into that later. Sam, what was your reactions upon seeing the finale, and what are your current thoughts on Cleaved?
I think upon seeing it, I was kind of underwhelmed. Not that that's really a bad thing. I'm gonna like show my cards here. Star wasn't like one of my top absolute favorite shows of all time. It was a show I liked, of course. It was a show I like grew to love, but I wasn't like super duper attached to it. So the finale was kind of like, it's ending. Yeah. So upon the initial watch, I was like, okay, well, there's a lot of loose ends here that I would prefer to be a little bit wrapped up neater, and a lot of logical things that I didn't really gel well with. But when I watched it again and thinking about it, I really liked the ambiguity of it. I really liked the very end with the race for your love sort of thing. Okay.
Don't ruin your thoughts, Michelle. We're building towards it.
Well, that could have
That's what the
meant
trope is
anything.
called.
She might be squeeing at that.
Is that a TV tropes page?
It is. I'm on it right now.
Oh wow!
God,
Give us some other examples on the TV tropes page.
What do you want? Do you want something from animation? Do you want live action?
Animation.
Okay, let me go down.
Open that animation folder on the TV tropes.
I'm getting there. Hold on. I had like a bunch of others open since I was reading it.
Doesn't it divide into like Western cartoons and then anime? Aren't those separate?
Yeah,
folders
and
on TV tropes?
anime / manga is like the same folder. So it's
Wow.
like confusing. Yeah, I know it's dumb. Clone High did like a gag of it. Phineas and Ferb apparently did it.
Okay.
Starverse is the Forces of Evil is on here already. It's at like the
They
very
work
end
fast.
of the page. Yeah. And there's various live action examples like Sleepless in Seattle or Garden State.
Oh, no,
That's another
Garden
thing. I'm gonna talk about that at some point, I'm sure.
Oh, not now. Okay, that's good.
No, not now. But it's a very common trope where you usually have people running across an airport or like a bus station or a city to get to each other, and they get together and maybe they kiss, maybe they just stare into each other's eyes blankly. I really
I hope not blankly.
okay, but I really liked that they ended it not on like a kiss, not on a tug, just like a meeting, and like the two worlds are merging and they're seeing each other face to face after thinking that they were never going to again, and they just say hello. And I think that's really beautiful and really nice, and that worked really well for me. I thought that was way more romantic than a kiss or any other gesture could have been, in my personal opinion. It kind of harkened back to, for me at least, the original Futurama finale in 2003, where it just plays up this ambiguity and it plays up this, well, what's going to happen next? We don't know. It's kind of like cliffhanger a little bit, but who's to say? Basically, I like that part of the finale a lot. I didn't really like the rest of it. I thought the rest of it was kind of okay. Sure, why not? Let's just do this.
Okay.
Unicorns. There's a lot of skeletons. That's disturbing.
Skeleton corns.
So I wasn't too much of a fan of most of the finale. I think it could have stood to be maybe a little bit more definite, a little more longer than the 22 minutes. But overall, it was satisfactory. TM.
Okay. Satisfactory TM. There you go. It's good. Got TV tropes in there. I want to drill more into the ambiguity thing a little later. I thought that was interesting. But it's the moment you've all been waiting for.
You really should not hype this up too much.
Yeah.
We've been wondering, what will Michelle think of this finale? And Michelle, I just want to know the emotions
Oh man.
behind the finale for you.
the first time I watched it, I like didn't know what to think or feel. I was just like, what? Because like of all the things I mean, we didn't get Buff Frog president for one thing.
That was your first
a
thought?
real shot to the heart. But like, so so the worlds merged through Love Portal. But I mean, if we really think about, I know like nobody likes the plot parts of this finale, and it's not as like a big surprise to see why. But if like the issue with the humans and monsters was basically racism, taking away the magic wasn't going to fix that, and now throwing them into Earth stuff, I really think that's going to cause even more problems. Like they're going to just have to establish an entirely new world order, and that's like such a like. Who's gonna handle that? Is Star Marco? I have no idea. It seems crazy. Like I really don't know what to think about like the world merger. Like and on a very small way. Like okay, cool. Star gets to have all our friends in one place. But when you look outside of that, it feels insane. So I don't know. It was a lot. Also, like, the High Commission's, like, dead, and, like, Hecabu's dead, and Glasser's dead, but Ludo's alive, so that's good. But, like, everyone else is dead. And, Mina had that weird line where she's like, you can get rid of me, but good ideas, they end up sticking around. And, like, that's what makes me scared. Like, if it's the ideology's the problem, like, getting rid of the magic didn't solve a dang thing. So, like, what was the point of that? I don't know. And like, there's just a lot. I honestly did have like a constant struggle in my core where like the Star Marco stuff was like making me uncomfortably feel things, but then a dumb thing would happen, like the love portal, or it'd be cute. They're like, oh, Marco stayed behind too, and like they'll figure this out together. And then it's like, wait, no, like you're in the realm of magic with no magic. That's a bad idea. Get out of there. And then they have that line where it's like, we do, with or without magic, like, we should always be together or something? I don't know. So how did they create the magic portal to merge the worlds if magic was destroyed? Like, one, why did Marco get stabbed by the unicorn? What did that mean? It just went away? Like, what was that? Like, so many things, like, I don't know. It's just there's just a lot. It just doesn't make any sense, or sounds like they're setting up the world in like a way more complicated, bad way. It's not going to work out well. So it was really hard to like come away from all that and be like, this is the end forever. Unless there's comics, there honestly might be comics, but I don't know. Like I want to reverse Star and Marco, but like the love portal's really wild. Like, I would never have seen that coming in a million years, and I don't understand the power of love, I guess. It didn't make any sense!
I don't understand the power of love, says Michelle. So the summary is that you can't get past the inexplicable plot things that are happening.
I just want to, like, understand what happened here. Like, was there, like, another season planned, and then they couldn't do that, so they did this and got rid of magic? Because it didn't feel like a lot of setup. Like Hecabu didn't get a good send-off, and Glossaryck didn't really get a good send-off. He basically had a Titanic send-off, and that's not great. So, I don't know. It just feels really weird. It feels really weird that we're ending it here.
So what? To me, the most interesting. Well, look at. Let's. Oh no, the star. We need to. The fans are clamoring right now to hear about these uncomfortable feelings for Starco that Michelle briefly mentioned during all that.
What does that mean?
I don't have a heart of stone, Dylan.
So it sounded like you didn't want to ship them, but you were shipping them in the finale.
I got swept up a couple times when especially when Marco cried. I was like, this is making me incredibly uncomfortable, but I hope he can stop crying soon. And then he sees Star and it's like, oh, thank God, now he won't be sad. But I mean, when Sam was saying I like that they were staring at each other instead of smooching at the end, Sam, that's a really good reason to think that. My reasoning, and I told Alex this, we watched it, I was like, oh, wow, I'm glad they didn't make it kiss because anime kisses always look so awkward. Like I'll never get over Aang.
Well, they already kissed a couple episodes before, so
it looks so weird, and I did not want to see that again.
There's no big payoff to like a kiss here, so it's fine.
It's really hard to make people look at kiss. It's really hard, and I'm glad they didn't try again. Frankly, it was a relief to see them just stare at each other.
No, okay. Can I throw something out here?
Yeah, what was your follow-up, Alex, to that?
Well, I was going to say, like, the way Michelle is explaining it, I feel like it's a situation where, like, Star and Marco get a happy ending. Series finales...
No one else does!
Right. Like, that's kind of the thing, right? Like, with a series finale, you kind of, like, feel like it almost has to be a happy ending feeling. But the issue is that, like, Star and Marco have the happy ending. But, like, the rest of the world, if you think about it, it's like, this isn't exactly like solving any problems. So like it's a weird place to end your show. Like leave it in a place of like chaos and disarray. Like we started the show like that with everything chaos and disarray. Like Star like blew up the Muni or something, and like Rainbow and Fire. And that's kind of how the show ends too. Like rainbows and fires all over the place. So it's a very unique way of doing a series finale, and it's a feeling that like you don't expect out of some like what's being built up to be like a culmination of the show. But like at the end of the day, they were focused on their two main characters, and the two main characters were happy together. And like for some of us that might be enough, but like if you think too hard about all the surrounding stuff, like it kind of like just it makes it murky, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So you three were less high on the finale than all of us on the first podcast.
Really?
So
really?
Well, all the original podcast was all like hardcore Starco shippers.
Right. Well,
Oh,
Sam
okay.
also ships Starco, but yeah, we have some.
Do you,
I'm not
Sam? Let the Sam speak for herself. Do you ship Starco?
I do, but I'm not like it's not like I'm ride or die.
Exactly.
I'm-
Yeah. So
I'm
like
25. I don't care about shipping that much.
Sam,
That is a good way to be.
so let's start with. I can bring up counterexamples.
I'm too old. Also, Dylan, shipping things in Life is Strange, and also The Last of Us is different.
No, it's
So-
not different.
Yes, it is. It's
It is
different.
different. Those are good ships, Dylan. That's a different.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no, no.
Not on our finale. Can
Yes.
you say that? Okay.
Am I gonna end up being like a Starco defender in this?
I think
You
so.
don't
Alex,
have to
yeah, it sounded
lie.
like you were
That's
shipping
right.
Starco there.
I like Starco, but like I wouldn't read fanfic for it. It's fine for the show that it's in.
Sam's
like
going to be
it.
reporting back on her fanfic research from today on this podcast.
I didn't do any.
Oh no, that was the whole segment I had put. No, just
Oh my god! For context, Dylan was like, "Oh, I don't know what to do now after the show is over," and I was like, "Well, you could read fanfic." And he was like, "Well, how many fanfics are there now?" And I was like, "There's like 20."
There's a lot.
I was like, I don't know what to do now that Starco is canon, specifically. Excuse me.
Just read fanfic.
Yeah, well, that's the answer.
Fanfic,
So there's
they're
been a lot of
little
fiction.
age years when they're going to Whole Foods and buying like.
I guess
trees
they would go to Whole Foods now
Yeah,
in
they
California on Earth. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to mostly focus on these three's opinions here, but for context, yeah, I really love Cleaved, and I mean, I think Andy liked it and then was higher on it after our discussion, but everyone on the first podcast really liked it, and on fourth viewing today, I liked it even more. Like I really like this finale.
How? What?
I disagreed with a lot of what you guys were saying, and we'll get into some of that. I guess I'm not going to make this like I try to convince you thing, but I think there's some interesting things to talk about. Thing that stood out to me on fourth viewing even more was the end of the first 11-minute segment. Everything from when when they're in the magic realm, from when the dark magic starts poisoning. I think it's like perfectly executed. Like the storyboarding, the voice acting is all like some of the best of the entire show, and I love the ending of that segment. I love obviously the ending of the episode. I mean, I think one of the things we're interested to get into here is like, does not shipping Starco like make this not as enjoyable? And honestly, I felt like that wasn't that much of a factor based on your guys' initial reactions. It sounded like Alex and Michelle, even though they're not like Starco shippers, were like liking the Star and Marco parts of the finale.
Well, like let's say like Star and Marco in this episode are very cute together, and like the moment as you mentioned, like the dark magic stuff, like when like the clouds are going together and they're like they have like that conversation in like the storm about like not being able to see each other again, and like Marco runs away crying, and like that all that stuff is like so much like drama and like good stuff. So like that's all like very emotionally compelling, and like that it is very sad and like meaningful to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, and Michelle, you so you were glad they didn't kiss at the end, but
Yes.
did you like the how the episode handled the end? Did you like you sounded like you liked the Star and Marco moments here?
I mean, I don't like's a complicated word.
Did you
But-
tolerate it?
I mean, they definitely made me feel things, but it's like, you know, if like all your life you like aren't crazy about spinach and like you eat something with spinach in it and you're like, oh, this is like not that bad. And you're like, wait, like what does that mean? But don't get excited. But I don't know. Some of the moments are really good, but then sometimes it becomes so stupid again.
Sounded like it shifted your perspective on life, liking Starco in this finale.
What are
I
things
think
that
the
you
rational
like?
thing, if you like spinach the first time after not having tried it for a while, is that you start eating spinach now. So I think you have to ship Starco now, Michelle.
I mean, honestly, if they just like do a good job doing like normal stuff, now that nobody's magic and all the magic's gone, the funnest part about the show's gone, then like maybe, but I don't know. I still like don't. I think it's honestly very confusing that they were able to merge worlds when the magic was already gone.
Okay, but I feel that that's
Okay.
like that's not what I asked you about, though. You know, like
That's like still in my brain. Like that's a part of it. Like the emotional roller coaster. It's like, oh, it's cute. Like the, you know, they were holding hands and Eclipso was like, are they? Aw, like that was a genuinely like funny, cute moment. Or like when Star goes back for Marco, she's like, I'm going to Earth. And then it's like, oh no, like the fear that the portal is closed. But then you see him sitting there sad in the windy vortex. Like that's good too. But then like they throw in those like cheesy lines, and then like the crazy plot logic happens, and it's hard to divorce that because
okay, yeah. So that's a good point. So that's what I want to talk about, because my talk about next, because that's like I said, that's not what I asked about, and you're saying no, it is like you can't separate that. So that's totally valid. So for me, like Michelle, you almost exclusively talked about plot stuff in your initial reaction. To me, the plot of this episode is like so irrelevant. So I have like no thoughts on it.
Well, okay, you say
It
that,
should be.
but that's like
It's been
66% of the
building.
episode.
yeah, it's been building to this for 3 seasons with a plot. So how can you like not think about the plot anymore?
It's a really interesting discussion. I don't think this episode is the culmination of the plot of the show. I think it like tangentially things are happening that happened after last episode, but like it's a culmination of themes and emotions and character relationships. Like I think that's prime, and I do think it's not like I don't think they're trying to culminate the plot, but I think like the primary focus that went into this episode was thematically. So that's like, I want to get your guys' take on, this was a big point of the last podcast that we talked about, is like, this is a very satisfying thematic episode, even if it's not a very satisfying plot episode. Is that something you agree with? I think a lot of fans are in agreement with you guys in that it felt too rushed, it didn't make sense. So I think if you focus on the plot, yeah, I mean, I do agree with all those things. But like, what Alex, what do you say about this thematically satisfying but not plot satisfying concept?
Well, like my thing is like it feels really hard to like separate the themes that the show had been doing, especially in this last season, with the plot stuff here, because like one big theme of like this final season was like relationship between monsters and humans. That in this episode feels almost tossed aside at the end. Like Mina is made to look pathetic by like getting beat up, like stomped by a unicorn, and then you have like the very awkward lines about like, yeah, that's an idea, it's gonna stay around, and like the other person's like, oh, I guess I'm not hate-filled. There,
Yeah,
the end.
Like, did she kill a bunch of people before she lost her powers in her suit?
Well, and the thing is, like, it existed before Mina, so like you can't just because Mina is not magic anymore doesn't mean like, oh, I guess I'm not as racist as I thought I was. Like, it doesn't work like so. Like, because the show puts so much focus as that as like a theme of the final season, and then to like end it that way felt like very almost icky. So like that part didn't sit well with me. The destruction of magic and like Star feeling the need. Well, okay, one thing I'll say with like themes, Star like being confident about herself, making her own decisions, and like going through with it, and like having her family be around her to support her, like that stuff lands pretty okay. Like, I'm kind of sad like Moon and Eclipsa feel almost like third wheels in this episode, especially considering like how important they were in other parts of the show. So like here they're kind of just like along for the ride, but like in the general idea of like Star being able to like bring her family together, and then at the end you got like that nice moment of like Eclipsa asking Moon for parenting advice. So like that stuff is kind of sweet. And so again, I think the things are themes that have to do with Star specific as a person, her relationships, like that stuff works. But the themes that they were doing around like the world just don't finish in a way that like feel like you went anywhere with them or you said anything that meaningful.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring in another main point of the first podcast now that you mentioned. I think it's a good thing to sort of tie in here as well. I think one of the things that we said, Delaney made this point, this works really well as a series finale, if maybe not a season finale. This is more of a series finale than satisfyingly wrapping up season 4. I think that would speak to Alex's point of like the human monsters thing isn't super addressed. Yes, but the bigger themes of the show maybe are what's the focus of. This YouTube comment from S Manda02. I'm glad you all like the ending. I think if you look at this as a season ending, it falls flat. As you said, it works well wrapping up the whole show. I feel bad that I enjoyed it so much. Maybe I'm a simpleton. I just knew that any kind of speculation. So I just want to say, like, not like if people are really critical of something, you don't not like agreeing with that does not make your opinion less valid. So I just wanted to make that point.
And like, we all get different things out of like the same piece of media, right?
Yes. We have a brief moment of a comment before we start disagreeing again. I agree. It's good. I'm glad we got that. Sam, what do you think of this concept that it works thematically but not plot-wise? Do you agree with that? Is that a good way to approach a finale?
I agree with it. I'm not so sure it is a good, like, especially if you have been building on certain plot points throughout the season, your last season, and it's like you're making this big statement with the monsters and human racism stuff, and you just basically you give it maybe a minute or two in your 22-minute finale. I don't really think that's okay. You know, like, while I do appreciate, you know, giving thematic credence to what Star is going through, Marco, etc., and that's where the heart of the show is, it isn't really where the show has been for the last 2 seasons.
Yes!
So I'm not sure if it really super worked. Like, if Star was more, I guess, serialized and more just like, you know, Monster of the Week, that sort of show, I think this finale would jive a lot better. Because when you have those kinds of shows that typically you jump from plot point to plot point each week, and you don't really have a connecting through line, so say like season 1 of Star versus this season, I think focusing on Star's relationship to Marco and Star's overarching relationship to magic, etc., I think that's where this finale would work better. But if you do have that through line, and if you do have really solid plot points that you were trying to make a statement on, I don't think it works. It's like a hard thing to juggle, because while, you know, the stuff in the finale that works for me, like really works for me, the stuff that doesn't, mainly the Mina stuff and where they landed or didn't land with the monsters, mutant stuff, like it's just a whole barrel of monkeys, and it really opens up the idea that, oh, of course they're going to do supplemental material afterwards. They're going to do comics or something or other, because that's just what shows and media do nowadays. If you have an unsatisfactory ending, or if you have an ending that maybe doesn't wrap up a whole lot of things, there is almost always going to be a comic tie-in, you know?
Okay. Yeah. I think that's totally valid. I have some responses, but I want to bring Michelle's. No, I mean, I want to bring it back.
Sam,
to
you're
stuff
valid, but like you're wrong.
I mean,
No,
Sam,
I don't think it's completely.
100% agree with
So
you.
so let's get Michelle's take on this concept of like how it works thematically. This finale.
I mean, like, I do see, and like, I didn't see this when I watched it, but like from our discussion, I would agree. Like, I can see a way of looking at this where it's like, if you're really just gung ho about Star and Marco, and you're really invested in their relationship, and they get to be together at the end, they found a way. Like, making sense aside, like that can be very satisfactory. My whole thing is like the show put so much time and effort into building these plots around those characters and introducing other characters to support these plots. And with that, I assumed, you know, they're taking these plots seriously. This is a big part of the story. They feel confident in turning the show into this direction, be it more kind of convoluted and higher stakes. Like, all right, like, we'll see where this goes. And the finale does very little to really tie that up in a great, believable way. And that feels like something that's a bit short-sighted. And I don't know if that's a time issue, if there was more planned, but this ending was like gonna always be the ultimate ending. So like they weren't able to wrap up a lot of the plot stuff. But I mean, they devoted many episodes to the Monster Mumin thing for seasons and seasons. So I mean, I could see them, this could have been like, you know, their best for, you know, half an hour, but it probably needed a lot more time to really feel like it mattered. And it didn't really feel like it mattered a ton, or at least not like it was earned. So that's like kind of that's a disappointment. I feel bad because like obviously this crew who made the show cared so much about it and they wanted to do it justice, but there are just parts that were really bizarre to me. Like, again, like back to the magic thing. Like, Star makes this decision like one episode ago. This is a huge decision. It impacts everyone. And like the idea that magic is what's ruining the world is not what we've been presented. It's people using magic in bad ways, right? So taking away the magic, I mean, it makes me think that, you know, more Minas will come back. And they'll find a different way to do what they've been doing. And we're going to have new problems. And I don't really think anything substantial has changed except the world merging. That seems to be the one real change. So, I don't know. I just get lost in that stuff because it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me based on the rest of the show.
Okay, let's talk about that killing the magic. That's one of the main discussion topics from this finale. Is like, this is like an interesting thing the show did at the end. Star chooses to take away magic. I think one of my main reactions to this, we talked a lot about this in the first podcast. I don't know if we had any really definitive conclusions to like why this happened. I think one of my main things is what Alex was talking about earlier. I think this finale is like all about Star displaying agency for herself and like taking control of her fate. And her everything like that happens in this finale is like Star choosing to do stuff. And so basically I think the main point of like, why is magic taken away? It's not that, it's like Star chooses to do this to like alter the shape of, how things are going terribly. And she is choosing and she is like affecting her own destiny as opposed to like all these things happening to her. So I think like the important thing is like Star, it's not like that magic is gone. It's like Star did this.
She's a murderer.
You know, of who? Glossaric?
How many people?
Oh, Hecapoo is dead.
Died.
That's true. Glossaric.
Okay, so it's a little unclear what happened to the High Commission. Ponyhead like speculates in that vision.
No,
that
there's a lot of blood on her.
Hecapoo said she was probably going to die. Yeah, I mean, probably they're gone. But yeah, Glossaric says he's gone. I don't know if I believe it. We don't need to talk about Glossaric.
What about all those unicorns, Dylan? They're all dead. All the spells in the wand are dead.
Probably, yeah. They will be.
Oh my
Are we
God,
upset
like,
we didn't get Spider in a top hat conclusion?
Yes.
Well, Narwhal dad is dead. He was a good dad.
Oh,
God,
my
I
God,
can't
yeah,
believe
everyone in the wand's dead because the horse running the wand is also dead.
I like how we're saying this is like this is definitely how this works. Like it just doesn't make any
It is
sense.
how
It could
it
work
works.
anyway. How do you know that's how that works?
because
What
the magic
the
is gone.
The magic's
It would
gone
be
and everything
like-
that's yeah.
But
It'll be
Ponyhead's
like
still there. How do you know?
If
She's
you remove,
just the head of a pony. That's not magic. This
Right,
is
that's what I
normal
argued on the
life.
first podcast. I
Yeah.
was shot down on that argument.
I support you on that.
Thank you.
honestly, I didn't even know that Ponyhead lives in Muni. I didn't know that. I thought she lived in like the Ponyhead land.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
the Ponyhead Lane is on Muni, but yeah, it's weird. Here's a comment we got on YouTube, which I think is really interesting from Replica Rabbit. I think the message of taking away magic was taking away the system that was putting the monsters down all this time. All the awful things that happened to monsters was caused by magic being misused by humans.
Wow. That's
And that like feeds into the thing of like magic representing weapons, and like if you want to go in that direction, like that's fine. It's still, you still have to deal with the fact that the root cause of the roots of the aggression is still there, but it's a step.
Is Star just an allegory for gun control?
Yeah, I think I briefly brought this up, but yeah, I think the magic could be seen as guns, and this could be seen as that. We talked about how, in terms of the monsters and humans, Andy had a really interesting comment on the first podcast that that line from that woman was about how like the echo chamber that fed her hate was gone, and so now she sees that she, like, Mina was, and magic was like an echo chamber for her prejudice, and now that that's gone, she's like, oh, I'm not that prejudiced. So it's like a commentary on like social media and stuff. I think that's a really interesting concept. Of course, it's only one line, so it didn't really dig into that.
Yeah, and like it was a very smart interpretation by Andy. I'll agree, but like again, my thing is this existed before Mina showed up in the show. Like that,
Right,
this
I
was
mean,
already
yeah.
a thing that was going on for a long time. So like the one line just doesn't feel like enough to be like, okay, things are gonna change. Like there's just because magic and Mina is gone, for whatever reason, the show has not done enough to convince me like that is going to help things.
So yeah, it's like, yeah, they're like, I guess Mina is driving them to like try to kill all the monsters. They were just hateful before, but now that they've been killing events previously in the history of the world, so I agree with that. But yeah, it's like it took their sitting prejudices and turns them into like violent action. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it really solves the entire human monster. Another thing we said in the first podcast is that there's no way to end this because there's no answer in real life. So like the show, like any attempt it would have made further might have been even more unsatisfactory because like prejudice isn't just, you can't solve prejudice here.
Wow. I feel woke now.
I mean, you can't can't solve prejudice, but like you can model change. And I think that's the thing that I was really looking forward to seeing as a potential conclusion, right? Dismantling the monarchy by having a new order where Buffrog is president. You're not destroying the racism against monsters, but you're modeling the change of the people and giving them a new position to like make decisions about the land that was taken from them bajillions of years ago. Like to me, that feels way more grounded in like a rational like thing that could evoke real change in a fantasy society. So that's why the merging with the earth, like, because the humans are not it's gonna be an adjustment, and I'm afraid the monsters are gonna get persecuted all over again. So
yeah, it opened up another can of worms.
Right, okay, so the merging of the
yeah.
world. So yeah, so Michelle really dislikes this, it seems like.
Yes, yes.
I don't really like it.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either. I think it's kind of dumb.
So one comment I want to address is I think Sam said like maybe something that insinuates like this is not how they might have wanted to end it ideally or something, or now they need to end it in the comics. I think this is like a very calculated ending for the show thematically. I think this is extremely purposeful, and I do think we should interpret the actions of the crew very purposefully. Like, I agree that if you think about how the two worlds are going to work together, beyond any initial passing thought, then it becomes really complicated. But I think the important thematic thing is how this relates to Star and Marco and the coming of them together.
Exactly. It's all about them.
Yes,
right?
correct. Right. So you can either see that positively like me or disparagingly like Alex is right now. But I think that's valid because a lot of the past 2 seasons, as we said, were about Star and Marco. So let me address that comment from Sam as well. But I also think they were about Star and Marco. So I think these are like extremely valid things. I think like you could say what you like. We did so much else these past 2 seasons. We did so many things that were we like why are we doing all these things? I think we're so exasperated on the podcast constantly like that it's going in all these directions. And by the way, side note, I think this finale is like extremely representative of what the show like never going where we would want it to go. And I think it's also like very representative of Star the character. It's like in a meta way very like Star just forges her own path. And I think the show kind of always has like forged its own path with like the plot directions it's wanted to go in. And like we might not agree, but it's like just doing it and because it wants to. And Star's just doing stuff and taking control of her own fate. So I think like I don't know if this is like intentional, but it's like very it's a very interesting metaphor. I think the last 2 seasons are about the primary I guess argument would be that this finale is very cathartic in the coming together of Star and Marco after a lot was pushing them apart previously. It justifies all this romance drama because it's about the catharsis of 2 people like in love, and not even just romantically, just their bond and also their love, and also these 2 characters. The whole end is them running together. I think that's why this trope is such like a successful emotional thing. It's all about bringing them together, and
they're
like,
star-crossed lovers.
And I think
Star,
yeah. So that would be the argument. And I do think a lot of that is there in the last 2 seasons, this pushing and pulling of them coming together. And so I think it's like given that we did all this romance drama, I made this argument before, like this is like the best way to handle it at the end is like double down on like the romance drama that we've been doing. I don't know if we have thoughts on this, and then I want to get into back to this thematic discussion too, because I have another point to take this.
I'll say that like in like the last batch that we had, like a big thing that was introduced was like Star is like, hey, now Marco's my boyfriend, but then immediately we introduce if you get rid of the magic, Marco might be gone. And like that, at least in like the first half of this episode, especially down to like once we finally get to like the storm, like that's kind of in the back of this episode all the time. It's like Star knows that like once she goes through with this, there's a very strong chance that she's gonna have to give up Marco, and like that kind of like adds a little extra drama to it. So like I agree in that sense that like the Starco drama is a huge part of what makes this episode like feel very, very cathartic when we focus in on those moments. So like in that sense, it definitely pays off like what has been one of the focuses of the show from beginning to end, where it goes wire to wire with like making Star Marco your emotional anchors.
Yeah. And okay, so I guess the way to transition is potentially at the expense of solving plot things in a satisfactory way. Getting back to this argument of it was satisfying thematically but not plot-wise, I'm really interested in comparing this to Steven Universe's Change Your Minds that we got earlier this year. Because I think we were saying, I think I was arguing an exact similar thing on that podcast, which is like, I'm really frustrated how quickly we wrapped up the Diamonds thing and the direction this went in. But like, I don't even care because it was just so emotionally cathartic. It was so gorgeous in the way it was presented. And to me, I had extremely similar reactions. Like, I think the closing scene of the episode and the show, and then the mid scene of them, together as in the magic dimension as that collapses. I think those are the two most gorgeous scenes of the show, and like that combined with how satisfying it feels thematically makes it very evocative of an episode like Change Your Mind, which to me is also very frustrating plot wise. Although I think like maybe the way which we differs, because if you don't agree with that assessment of like was Change Your Mind frustrating plot wise or not, but like I think it's interesting because you guys are like no, the plot was I mean it's differing levels and different opinions. Obviously, it's like the plot was and a lot of the fandom too is like the plot is really bad here. But I think Change Your Mind was like universally loved, despite also I think a lot of fan frustrations with some of the plot stuff. So like I want to know like what's the difference? I think it's interesting.
There's
what's
a big difference. So I think Star made a decision in season 2 to focus like at least 50% on plot. And the plot has become like much more involved over time, and the payoff of the plot having such a big weight could never really do itself justice, wrapping it up cohesively in such a short amount of time for a finale. Whereas Steven has always been like a character first, like chiller, like get to know these people in this weird beach city kind of show first, and a plot second. And I know that has driven so many people crazy, but it's true that the plot's not the most important thing to that show. And I think because Change Your Mind, it has 5 episodes instead of 2 to wrap all that stuff up. The fact that, like, you know, there is like more to the story apparently, and that like all the characters have very satisfying arcs. Like we get so many things that we've been waiting for, and like characters build off each other and work together, and like we've been with them for so long. That's like the point of the show, and that's overwhelmingly what we get in those 5 episodes. So of course, like we can look past the one like diamond redonkulousness of like, can you really change dictators' minds? Like that's one question. Whereas like Star's plot has like so many questions and so many plot points. I think that's the biggest difference. Like Star's become more of a plot show, but Steven honestly never really was as much about plot as it was characters. I think that was smart of it.
And I'll add as well, Change Your Mind like had so many moments of payoff.
Yes.
Like I mean, are we allowed to get into Change Your Mind spoilers?
We can put up a spoiler warning.
Yeah.
Spoiler warning for Change Your Mind.
Okay, but like the introduction of Obsidian, Lapis and Paradox showing up after being gone for like a whole season, like you were waiting for them to show. They had new outfits, you know. And then on top of that, like you have like the beautiful animation and stuff, and you have like there's like a full on epilogue going on there. Like you get the montage, and then you get like the peaceful like denouement of like just Steven and the gems talking to each other, you know. So like I remember all the complaints about pacing, and even back then I disagree with it, but like I can still see people complaining about pacing. But for whatever reason, the Star finale, like I'm trying to like think of like moments that you could consider payoff outside of Starco, because like I mean like the biggest thing was always like the Starco kiss, and that happened a couple of episodes ago, and you have like the moments of like them being very emotional with each other, but that's not I'm not sure that's necessarily like something that you were like really hoping would happen one day, like them having to like break their hearts, having to separate from each other, or like stuff like in a different show. Like if Eclipsa was given more focus, like her becoming a butterfly form,
I
like
think
Nora
that's
becoming
obvious.
butterfly form.
That's the obvious.
Yeah, like that like
yeah.
could have felt like payoff in a different show, like gave Eclipsa more seriousness on that side of the story. But like in this episode, it feels just kind of like a quick thing. It doesn't get treated with like, whoa, this is amazing. Whereas like Steven Universe, like it felt like so. I think like it feeling fast made like all those moments almost like feel like more like like this is pumped. This is making me feel pumped, you know. So like I think that there's just something to the idea of like Steven took the time to like make those moments feel huge, whereas with Star, because we again, like Michelle points to like the fact that like we are like giving focus to story, and like in the process we've kind of lost like some of the character. Like I've complained in the past about like Eclipse kind of getting like shunted to the side for a while, and like here she is also like kind of like a third wheel at the end. So it's like I should feel great about like finally seeing these characters like get to their endings, but they don't get to do much. Like Star is great, but the rest of the characters don't really get that many big moments at the end.
Yeah, I think the 2 main points you guys brought up of one, Steven never went as hard into being serialized as narrative heavy as Star did. I think that's very true. I think that that goes along with this argument of like, if Star didn't do the things it did the last 2 seasons, then this finale could have been better. I think that all is logically consistent. And then Alex's point of like, there's no, like Steven has a bunch of emotional payoffs, whereas Star, they're all focused on Star and Marco. I think there are other things like the Eclipse of Butterfly form and them all doing the stuff together. I agree it doesn't land as hard as the stuff in Steven Universe. And I think like Steven teases stuff more. It's just just a more successful show. I think it's a little bit unfair to compare, but I'm the one who brought up the comparison. But yeah, I'll get back to this. Sam, did you have different reactions to Change Your Mind versus this finale? Do you think it's a good comparison? Do you see similarities?
I don't really have any opinion on this, honestly. I don't. Pass.
Fair.
Okay,
dude. Okay, I watched Change Your Mind once about how many months ago? 4 months ago.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember any of it.
I mean, a big difference is like Change Your Mind aired live and then we podcasted right after, and this is like on demand in the morning and you can watch it a few times for the pod. It's a big difference. It's a different experience.
I do remember feeling like Change Your Mind was more emotionally substantive, and basically I agree with Michelle's.
Okay.
So
yeah,
Thanks,
I think a lot of what you guys are saying is true. I think the big difference for me is like I had a lot more invested in the plot things Steven was doing versus Star's plot I didn't care about. So like it's almost like the expectations were lower for Star's plot, so I didn't really care that they didn't end satisfyingly versus like Homeworld and the Diamonds. I'm like this stuff is so important and is like been on my mind for years, and like the show's been building towards this, and then I felt like it was like dismissed way too quickly. So like even though it's even though it's maybe handled similar, and maybe even Steven handles the plot better, just like relative to like what's going in, I felt like that was the big difference for me plot wise, at least.
I think that's very fair, but that's also very sad, right? That our expectations for Star plot is low because we never really know what they're going to do with it any given week or year or season. So, I mean, it's kind of sad in a way that we don't have higher expectations for the finale to cover it.
And like going back to the idea of theme, right? Like Steven Universe was always like hammered to the nail of like you can like get along with everybody. Like there's always like a piece of good you can like bring out of people, and like it was like very obvious, and like some people are like no, like you need to be a little bit more nuanced to that, and like they sort of try and change your mind, and like your mileage may vary on that, but at the very least the themes they're going for are very clear. Star, like with the finale, like I for whatever reason I'm struggling to see like the thematic tying up going on here. So there's just something about like how like Star combines all this stuff together that just like doesn't like there's like it's two philosophies, right? Like, it's like going straight to the point and like very obvious versus like kind of like keeping stuff in the background and like having like little moments bring out the thematic stuff and like what works for you, right? And with Star, like I think that if they're going like for thematic stuff, it feels kind of subtle, and because it's like surrounded by like story stuff, it's very easy for it to get kind of drowned out.
I think the point of like Steven theme wise plays to what it always was, like whether you like it or not in terms of how it manifests in the plot. I definitely agree with that. I think Star does it too in a different way. I think it doesn't manifest in the plot because the plot was kind of crazy and all over the place. I do think it doubled down on its strongest themes, much like Steven did. And those strongest themes are the bond between Star and Marco. So that's what I would argue there is like, that's this show's version of that is it's focusing on bringing Star and Marco together above these other things that are happening is like the show being like very thematically consistent with what it was. The difference is like Steven like hinges its plot around that, and this show does too, but it also like does it in a way which like potentially eschews all logic of the previous like parts of the show. And so yeah, obviously I understand if this is like a big thing because it was a big thing in the episode. But I do think like this episode is interested in focusing on Star's strongest themes and closing out the biggest elements of Star. Like I think that's like an important point. And the other finale, which I feel like we already compared this to, which is the Adventure Time finale. This felt very Star. The Adventure Time finale is very Adventure Timey. I also think the Adventure Time finale is like thematics first, plot second. Like it wraps up a plot that was only that focus of a few episodes before, and then introduces a new plot, which is like mostly irrelevant to us. So it is like very themes first. I think. Much
I
like
agree.
those.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sam, do you think the Adventure Time finale did it like a lot better? I think you would say yes, probably to that.
I do. Honestly,
Spoiler.
I think that the thing that Adventure Time had going for it was length, honestly. I really do think that this finale could have stood to be a bit longer, but that's nobody's fault except Disney XD's, I guess. I don't know. I think that the Adventure Time finale kind of brought in all of the good thematic elements and all of the thematic elements that really made Adventure Time what it was, that being, it brought in the surrealism, it brought in the epic adventuriness, it brought in the romance, it brought in the songs, it brought in all of this stuff that was the DNA of the show, and it melded it together so well. And while, having the whole montage thing at the end, in retrospect, that kind of was really on the nose. Like, did we really need to have that? I don't know. I think it was successful because it kind of pulled back away from the story with its framing device. And it was like, oh, like, here is what happened, but, it's kind of an unreliable narrator. It's treating this big event as a blip on the face of the world, which I think, in going with that show's theme, that really worked well. But in the case of Star, you can't really do something like that because it's really about royalty and the epicness of the goings-on of the characters and the state of the world. But at the same time, I do kind of feel like it was treated like a blip in universe. Like, we didn't really go to any new locations. We were just like, oh, let's go to the magic unicorn realm and save the spell and blah, blah, blah. And we didn't really do anything, I think, that was reflective of anything besides, the Star and Marco stuff. That was satisfactory to me personally. So, who's to say?
I think the finale probably tried to do that. We had like the best hits of all the characters in the second half. We did, the magic dimension was part of the show. You got unicorns and casting spells, and but yeah, I mean, it certainly isn't like, oh, here's what we loved about Star, like Adventure Time, or like maybe some other finales were. Maybe something I thought of when you mentioned this montage at the end, which I love, by the way, of the Adventure Time finales, like that and Change Your Mind both have kind of a denouement that this episode doesn't have. Maybe that's what you guys are getting.
Yeah,
that's part of it.
And you go ahead, Alex.
It ends so suddenly, and like earlier in that second half, you have the whole scene with like Ponyhead like comforting Star. It's like, no, your friends are okay, but like it feels so empty because it's Ponyhead who's delivering it, and it's like Ponyhead doesn't know anything.
We had to work in some Ponyhead hate here.
Oh my god!
So they're doing the montage thing, but because of like how it's being delivered, where it's being delivered, there's still like some episode left. So like the montage doesn't fit. It's like you're putting it in the wrong place.
Yeah, I do think the Ponyhead segment was the weakest part of the episode. That combined with the beginning of the Earth stuff, but to me, basically, that is like okay, good, but not great, and then everything else is spectacular.
Can I say?
Yeah.
That this was the first time I've ever liked Ponyhead.
Wow. She was like comforting Star?
Because she said that bird person when referring to Talon. And I was like, I can relate to that because I did not know what his name was. Like, he's been on the show how long? He was just always, he's like the bird guy, right?
He really hasn't been on the show, though. Talon did not deserve that spotlight in the ending. I don't get
I appreciated that, like, Ponyhead was really adamant, but yeah, that bird person, like, that was #me. So in that moment, I did feel a communionship, a sisterhood.
A kinship with Ponyhead.
Yeah, a kinship with Ponyhead for the first time. Better late than never, I guess.
Yeah, Sam's just a big Rick and Morty fan, so she likes
Ponyhead
calling him bird person.
Shut up! Do not slander my name like that,
I know,
Dylan.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Talon would be friends with Tammy, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's true. I feel like, I guess we all agree it's like all of these finales are thematics first. I also think like the Gravity Falls finale, while also more plot focused, I also feel like it brought in a plot thing that it resolved towards like it brought in a plot thing and then resolved it right away, and it was also more thematically focused. The Voltron finale, I feel like, also brought in a plot thing that it was like towards the end and resolved it, and it was more thematically focused. I think that one was the least successful of all these in terms of the themes it was focusing on. Mm-hmm. But I think the rest of the ones I mentioned are all pretty similar. Like, I would put this finale up there with all the rest of these. I mean, I think the Adventure Time one's probably the best of the ones we talked about, but I don't know. I think it just is about how the theme first works for you. The big difference, I guess, is that all the plot stuff here is more nonsensical. But I think I'm like way unattached to what's happening plot wise in Adventure Time as well. But at least it's consistent, I guess, is maybe that's a big difference. Is like,
and like it gets rid of it in the first half, it introduces a thing that we
the second
knew
thing I'm
about.
also uninterested in too. Like, but it is a thing that makes sense for the show. Yeah,
right. Whereas like this finale, it's kind of like from beginning to end, it's sort of all the same thing. It all has to do with the getting rid of magic, right? And so it just kind of depends on like how on board you were for like the past couple of episodes.
Yeah, and I think like for me it didn't even matter that we're getting rid of magic. It's about the themes like surrounding that, but I think like so maybe it's about if it matters to you and why. But not that it is your choice for it to matter, right? Like if it's like you're watching it and like, cause it is a big focus of the finale and this is like, what's the focus, then I guess it's going to work less because this is like cause I do agree, like from a pure plot perspective, like what is this episode even? Like, it's a lot of things happen that don't make much sense. I don't know. Is there, but like, do we agree that it's like themes first at least, but it's about surrounding factors maybe that are more of the difference.
Yes.
Okay. It's interesting.
Yeah. It has to do with like how much they let those themes shine. And like, it seems that you were able to like dig it out of the superficial story going on. And for some of us, that story was just like way too in the foreground to like really be able to dig into the themes going on in the background.
And I do think this is the reaction, what you just described for the second thing is what I'm primarily seeing online. Which I don't know. I feel like it's unfortunate. I don't like it would be good if people were more happy about the show. Like it's the show ending. This is a big thing.
Yeah,
it is a big thing. It's just lots of complicated feelings with that too, based on what we've gotten and how we feel about that.
And like my internal thinking is like, it's the series finale, so like, is it the best episode of the season? Like, I should tell myself that it is, but like, is it? Like, I feel weird that I even have to think about that because I feel like with series finales, it's like always a thing.
I don't think it's like, automatically the best.
Well,
you know,
maybe not automatically, but I usually feel like they're like really strong, and like for whatever reason, like this finale leaves me just like feeling like kind of lost at sea, and like I don't get it.
Much like Glossric.
Wow,
Yeah.
It's too intellectually deep for Alex.
Yeah, it broke my mind.
I think the thing
Did it change
for
your
Star,
mind? I didn't change your mind. No.
I think the thing with Star for me, it always kind of ran the gambit between the Adventure Time kind of surrealist magic, whatever, and the Steven Universe kind of more heartfelt, character-based, slice of life sort of stuff. And for me, it was kind of hard to get into. For that, just in general, which eventually I did, obviously, but at times it kind of felt like, well, what is the show doing? And I think the finale is definitely a reflection of those two conflicting styles in my head. Not to say that the show's bad, obviously I watched the whole entire thing, so I liked it, but I don't know, I just wanted to put that out there that for me it kind of just felt like thing, like if you cook and you put ingredients together and like you're trying new stuff, it's like, well, it's a thing.
I wonder if it also has to do with the fact that like the quote villain is like so ambiguous as well, and this because like in the finales of like other shows that we've talked about, there's like a very defined villain, and like earlier in the show you had Toffee, and like I still look really fondly on like the Toffee arc and like how all that went down, and like down to the battle for Muni situation, like that was all like very compelling, but because like there's like a solid person on the other side where it's like it's a unique perspective, like going for like you have Mina as the nominal villain, but like the real thing of it all is just getting rid of magic, and that's like not a thing it's more of like dealing with a concept than a villain, right? And like that's just like a very interesting way to do a finale, and like that I can see that totally working for people just because like how unique it is. But like you have to say like other series finales like go for like established villains, and like that adjusting to a show that doesn't do that is definitely like a different way of storytelling, and one that is valid in its own way. But like it definitely is one that like you need to like think about because of the fact that there's not something as focused.
I think the Mina thing. So I think like a point about what we're saying is like I think this finale highlights the plot problems of the previous two seasons. Just because like it struggled plot wise at the end, so like it's like this is like what the show was. So I think like that's kind of what we're saying to a certain extent. And then I feel like Mina's like irrelevant in the finale, and it's like I think the Mina's points are valid, and that's like the problems with season 4 versus like this finale. Mina's like on screen for less than a minute, and it's like, but at the same time, like what is the plot revolving around? Then it's like it's still, even if it's like not about Mina, it's still about this like vague quest from Star and the consequences based on cosmic factors, right? It's still like a very there's still not like a thing they're doing fighting against, so it is still like very high level. I think like for me it worked in the finale. It didn't necessarily work in the rest of the season, which is interesting. But it is at the very least an interesting choice that Star has made recently. To have more concept based and not being as it did have Mina, but yeah, Mina was always not just Mina. It was more about they highlight this in the episode, right? That's her last thing she says is it wasn't about her, it was about the ideas she represented. So maybe Star was doubling down on that point at the end.
What does it mean?
It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't like necessarily think it was a good thing that the show did that, but it's like really interesting that
it's very intellectual, and like people are going to be studying this in college.
Yeah, when's the Star course?
I don't know.
College?
Also, I have a question. Who was the person who shot? Were they supposed to be significant? Or were just
that was a new person, I believe.
They were just a rando, so they're just going to be. They're going to be
represented a monster.
They're going to be expanded upon in the comics, I'm sure.
I think the idea is just like now monsters aren't afraid of her anymore. Like,
which I think emphasizes this concept of like magic being a thing that brought monsters down. Which I feel like that's one of the more interesting interpretations I've heard of. But if like the show was trying to say that, it didn't really say it that loudly. Okay. It's okay. I feel like we're leaving at an unsatisfactory point, but maybe that is a representative of the finale. Michelle, give us your closing thoughts on Cleaved and Star in general.
Closing thoughts on Cleaved, I still have a lot of just not good feelings about it. But I do think the Star Marco stuff was especially strong. It happened. I mean, it already was a thing before, but there was more of it, them liking each other, and that was, it was what it was. And that's not necessarily bad if you don't think about the plot at all. It was purely emotionally, it was nice. In terms of Star as a show, like I honestly think Star has been like a pretty cool, unique, interesting show. Honestly, like I can't think of any other show that's quite like it. And I am really sad to see it be gone. If they do comics, like, I honestly might check them out because they really changed everything. So there's honestly like a whole lot they could do from here on out. It's just definitely
what if Starco was on every page, Michelle? Would you read the comic?
No, I'd ask for someone to read it to make sure, and then if there was, they'd be like, oh well, okay, never mind.
So you double check to make sure that it's only Starco. Okay.
But
Michelle will ship the ship in Star. What would it be?
That was okay.
Jack, what do we think of Jackie and her girlfriend in this episode?
That was great, but also Marco literally rode Tom during the magic goop area, and that made me so happy. Like that was a real moment they had. So maybe there's hope for them yet. They're still young; they can figure things out.
Yeah, I mean. Just okay. Anyway, I won't. Okay.
OT3.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that, but no, we don't do. Alex, and oh, by the way, I think again, it's going back to like Star represents Star, like the show represents the character. Like I feel like really unique and very. I feel like again, it's about Star the character. Like these meta comments about the show itself. I don't know. This is an article. Maybe I'll do
Yeah,
it.
you
Alex, what are your...
The Star is the superstar of the show.
Is that
Like-
the title of the article?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Cleaved. It's a finale that it's going. I think after talking it through, I think that you can definitely see that it's going for unique things. It's definitely not trying to be like a cliche series finale, and it deserves some props for that, for like trying to go for its own path, you know. Whether stuff lands or not, like it'll depend on how you're watching, but like it's definitely trying to be like a special thing, and like it deserves some props for that. It's definitely a pretty finale. Like I don't think we've talked enough about like how like some of this stuff is animated, like the storm stuff was all very compelling. Them be the ghost queens, like if you think about it too much, like it'll mess you up. But like just the imagery of like the ghost moms like coming up behind them in like the fog, like that was all like very like spooky, like very aesthetic in that way. And like the love portal, like for like the story purposes, it was like that whole scene of like them running together, like that's all like very beautifully animated. So like just down to the end, like Star is just a beautiful show no matter what.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Okay, go ahead.
Well, yeah, and so like, and as for like the show, like there are characters that are really great. Like Star, like from beginning to end, is just like a ball of joy, and like she made me happy so many times during the watching of this, and her interactions with Marco, seeing that develop was all like. It's like, you know, relationships that like go through like a lot of different stages, you know, and you know. Kelly, she kind of got like shoved off at the end, but like she had very nice.
You like
moments.
seeing Kelly and Jorby there?
No, it made me feel bad because it was like they like pushed her off at the end to get dumped off screen, and like this is her ending. It's just like, you know, back to normal. It's like I don't know, made me feel sad, but like also. Kelly was great for like the time she was there. Despite your slander, Ludo and Glossric were actually fun characters, and
In
Toffee
general,
was
or in
great.
this episode? They were fun in this episode.
Ludo was there for 2 seconds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why he was fun. He was only there for 2 seconds.
He's had other moments, and he doesn't deserve your sass. Okay, so like
He does.
and like Glossaric, like he's a troll, but he's my troll. Like yeah, I appreciate his
Aw.
trolling. So yeah, so there's just like a lot, and Eclipsa, like she had like so many awesome moments, even if not in this finale, but like throughout the show, like she had been great. So like there's just like a lot. The Star definitely did like a really good job with just like always trying to be as fun as possible while like sprinkling in their plot stuff and like relationship drama, but like it was always trying to be fun, and I had a really good time watching it from beginning to end, and I hope that there are more shows that bring me like that kind of joy, and like and with like all the different kinds of characters that they tried out.
Oh, okay, that's a good send off for Star. Maybe we'll spin this off into another podcast. Star close in general. Star,
Yeah, we gotta hold like the in memoriam for every
Yeah,
character.
maybe we'll do that. I don't know. That was great. Sam, what are your parting thoughts on this? Potentially including Garden State references.
Okay, so I have a few things to say. All right, hot takes, cold foods, pudding.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Pudding I like a lot. I don't like it as much as ice cream. I think ice cream's still number one in terms of the desserts, but I do enjoy a good pudding. My favorite is vanilla pudding, but I
Yes.
also
Oh yeah,
Dylan's gonna object to
Ooh,
that.
yeah.
better than banana, that's for sure.
Ooh, yeah.
Banana pudding.
Better than
Chocolate.
chocolate pudding.
No,
Like
chocolate
what was
is the
Gloucester
answer.
doing with? I mean, what was Marco doing with like 20
Marco
packs?
has
of
good taste
chocolate
with
pudding?
chocolate pudding.
No,
okay?
no.
But
Foster
I
Link
do-
gave him-
I do
Yeah.
still like the layered pudding where it's like chocolate, vanilla, chocolate, like in with the vanilla in the middle. I like that a lot too. That's usually what I buy at the store these days.
All right.
But I digress. So pudding, a-okay. What was my other things?
That's the most important
That's the
one.
whole thing.
No, have a cool other thing. So, Star / Jana is obviously canon. That is the one true ship of the show.
That stuck out to me on this fourth viewing. Is why did they include these parts of them saying how much they really liked each other? Like it seemed I didn't understand the purpose other than like saying that they had feelings. I don't know.
Because they secretly have a crush on one another, but it can never be because, Starko and Marco is Star's true love. But in another life, maybe Jana and Star will.
I kind of think that's what they were saying, actually. Like, I kind of think that's what it was.
Yeah, so I shipped that. Jackie and her girlfriend, they were there too. And there were mermaids. They weren't mermaids, but there were mermaids in the scene. So they can become mermaids and become one with them. So I'm hopeful for that. Garden State references. Honestly, I was thinking about Garden State, the 2004 Zach Braff film.
As if you didn't know, listener.
They don't. Nobody knows about this crazy bad movie. They shouldn't.
I was thinking about it because when I first watched it, my reaction to the love run to the portal, it was like, oh, this is just like Garden State.
That's what they were going for. That's what the Borders were going for.
Yeah, it was. Wasn't it Zach Braff, just flat out gets off of a plane and runs to Natalie Portman to, stay in New Jersey and kiss her? In retrospect, after reading the Wikipedia summary yet again for Garden State, not too much similar, but I just want to say that is the connection that I made when I first watched the finale, so kudos to me. It was also a lot like Half-Life, in terms of the merging together of worlds and portals. So for all those video game fans out there, you gamers, I got you. I got the references. Alex says Titanic. Why?
Because it's like a love story that almost ends in the middle of a storm. They're gonna die, and at the end, instead of Rose seeing Leo DiCaprio in her dreams, it's Marco waking up from a dream and seeing Star.
So why'd you type that instead of saying it? Why'd you?
Well, Sam was the one doing the pop culture references.
Oh my god! Fine, it's just like Titanic, except for Marco doesn't
Sam
die.
is miffed.
I didn't make that connection. I think Titanic, after the first VHS tape, is not very good. Anyway.
Like this finale. No, wait.
Back to the star points I personally want to make. Finale, good. Again, I love the ambiguity. It opens my heart up. Would I personally run to a mysterious portal if it possibly maybe abstractly meant that my one true love was on the other side? I don't know. It seems really dangerous to me. Marco trips and falls on a skateboard and he gets all scratched up. Mm-hmm. So maybe I would skip that part for my personal life if this was the thing that were happening, but it works in fiction, so whatever. Star on the whole, it's been a real one. Very rare. Very rare is the female-led animated show. And we're getting to a point now in the world and culture where that's becoming more prominent. Thank you for the AO3 link. Sorry, Alex is just posting things in the chat.
Alex, speak. We're still going.
I want to let Sam finish.
Okay. What was I saying? Man. Oh yeah, Rare is the female-led animated show. I think when the show began, it was really just still Korra as told by Ginger and the Wild Thornberries were the only three that had ever happened. And, look at where we are now. So I think, it was a very progressive show and that to that end. And I think it really opened up a lot of doors for, who the main character, a really hyper, super nerd girl, which I think is a good thing. Personally, while I feel like sometimes I could be really down on the show in this podcast, but I liked it. It was a good time. It was a valid however many hours of my life that I spent watching the show. 7 out of 10 would do again in probably 10 years.
Yay!
So you're committing to a Star rewatch in 10 years.
That is exactly what I did for Avatar: Last Airbender. I watched it 10 years after I finished it.
Look for that content TM coming in 10 years. Sam's vlogs on the Star rewatch.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great thoughts. Maybe we'll do, I don't know if we'll do a closing podcast on Star. We'll see. Look for more Star content coming your way on your Star feed. At least one more thing, probably. So look for that also on YouTube. We'll surprise. Yeah.
I can't wait for the Starco breakdown.
Starco's podcast coming. Well, we teased that on the last podcast.
No.
The history of Starco.
Yeah. April's gonna come on with like a textbook she wrote, and she's gonna lecture on the history.
I love April. April
I do love
believes
April.
in love, and that's
you guys are like, don't like Starco, like April.
Yes,
that's what
exactly.
Michelle will say now. Okay.
yeah. April believes in like true love, and that's a good thing.
That's what Starco is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like this talk of Star as a character in the closing thoughts. Yeah, Star. I've said for a few years on this podcast, Star Butterfly is the best character on television, and I think she will be throughout this year as well. Very sad to see her off TV and out of the animation world, and this show gone. I think Star and Marco is like an all-time animation ship. Star is an all-time character, and the show was pretty great as well. And I'm starting the campaign for Cleaved for best episode, Star for best character, and Star as a show for best show. I think it got there in the last third of the season. I think it's I don't know about nomination worthy for best show.
I don't know about Cleaved as best episode. That's
anyway. I'm going to post my episode rankings here on the Discord. You all will be appalled at how high I'm ranking Cleaved. So
probably. I mean,
but yeah, Star for best character, cosign.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, she's a previous winner of this category, so she could win this year. I think she had a great year. I think this finale was so fantastic for her.
Who
I think
has
she's
been the
other leader
other
right now? Birdie, I think, is up there too. But yeah, I think Star potentially leading best character. Okay, so that's it. This is the guy who let Michelle go make dinner. This is too long.
Okay, I just want to quickly say there are 3 Starco fanfics on AO3 that have been posted since the finale. The magic is back. There is no such thing as canon SVT FOE finale fitsing fanfic. And fancy meeting you here, which has the description, after everything that's happened, Tom just wants a corn shake. He finds something much better. Which is like, why is that in the Starco section? But okay.
Maybe it's OT3. You find something much better with Star and Marco.
It's Marco.
Why can't Star be? Let's love everyone.
They vibe in a very different way when they're together alone. Then
I think you can capture the two-person dynamics within a group romance setting, Michelle.
I guess. So I'd only read the chapters that were exclusively Tom Marco. That's what that means.
Wow, cutting Star out after we just praised her so much. Okay. Let us know your comments. We read some comments here. Continue with the YouTube comments at youtube.com/overlyanimated, on our website at overlyanimated.com. Talk about it with us on our Discord at overlyanimated.com/discord. Support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Michael, aka Mickey. And thanks as always to our patron executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Hugh, and Michael. We'll see what's coming Star-wise, but stay subscribed if stuff happens so you won't miss it. And also check out our other coverage, including we had a bunch of Miraculous Ladybug podcasts, Fruits Basket podcast going up along close to this one. OKKO, is there DuckTales coming up? All that stuff. Overlyanimated.com. There you go. It's it for Star. We'll come back to it.
It's been real. It's been fun.
It has.
It's been real fun.
Is it real fun, real and fun, or real fun?
Real fun. It's been real, it's been fun, and it's been
we
real
have
fun.
to go.
Okay, thank you guys listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Wow.
Bye.